Well, hey folks, it's your old pal King Waspinator. Welcome back to Total Party Skills. For lack of any other subject matter, I figure since I got so many new viewers and subscribers, I might as well actually let you know a little bit about myself. Longer time viewers, have heard my various stories and incidents and things that have been formative to me as a gamer and so on, yada yada yada. But some of y'all are new, so I'm in my mid 40s. I write books. I do not write OGL books. I write my own very rules light kind of role playing game products that are more emphasis on trying to inspire ideas in the reader so that they can come up with their own adventures instead of bogging them down with a bunch of heavy rules and too much setting information. I try to find that sweet spot where it gives you enough information to get your own brain whirring and moving and ticking over and coming up with your own stuff without being like too just like here's a list of kings and a list of kingdoms, figure it out yourself. It's but it's not Palladium either, which ironically, as a fan of Palladium, it's funny that I try to avoid being quite so text dense as some Palladium books can be. So but the only reason even any of that started is because I had an older, crappier YouTube channel that I started around 2016, 2017, where I was much more trying to get into that entertainment, movie, and TV review kind of crowd of YouTubers. Did not work very well. Learned a lot of lessons. People don't really like people pestering people about your channel and stuff in comments or in chats and stuff like that. And, learning those lessons have helped inform making Total Party Skills a better channel. I also just kind of had a bit of a wannabe Andy Kaufman kind of thing going on where I personally found it amusing to make videos that were kind of just wasting people's time. And, that's that audience of one kind of humor where the joke is purely for the person telling the joke and everyone else is kind of being used as a prop for that joke. Which is also, not the nicest thing in the world. And another thing I've tried to avoid doing with this channel, I'm mostly, trying to provide genuine commentary on something that I feel I do provide a little bit of expertise in. Obviously there's people out there who know more about D&D rules. There's people out there who've even gone further into the weeds of memorizing every last little detail of Rift's lore, so on and so forth. There's plenty of other people out there writing their own games, and they're all good, and so on and so on. But, I never really even expected to be doing any of this. As bad as that old YouTube channel was, it was actually rather instrumental in me meeting my current wife. We were both coworkers, and she didn't really know how to necessarily approach me at first. But because she had the access to my YouTube channel, she was able to kind of get to know me before getting to know me kind of a thing. So in some ways, I married my own YouTube stalker, and that's worked out really well because she talked me into quitting my job so I can sit around and write. To what degree that I kind of seem to maybe push my products a little bit much on this channel is because this channel is entirely in existence as a byproduct of I'm going to sit down and start writing some books. In order to be able to sell books that you write, you need an audience. And if I want people to buy role-playing games, then I need people who are into role-playing games and learn to like my particular take on things. It's a filtering process to find people who might be interested and picking up some of my stuff and checking it out, and then picking up more of my stuff, because, I'm trying to, churn things out on a semi-regular basis. I take some time off if there are things going on in life and stuff. Try to sit down and hunker down and build up a nice little catalog of things, so that, if you only have one book out there, you seem a bit more iffy to people casually. You got a bunch of stuff. You come across to a casual browser as obviously they have something to say and, someone must be buying this stuff. D&D wise, I didn't, technically the first game I played was D&D, but I had no idea what was going on. I was 12 in junior high. Some kid was having some sort of weekend sleepover thing. I don't even remember exactly how I got involved, but I do remember having a phone call with the kid where he's basically running me through AD&D character creation, making decisions, and have him rolling dice for scores and stuff. I really was like never had heard of D&D beyond the cartoon, wasn't really aware of what was going on, wasn't really sure what the fuck was going on when the game was in play, and kind of just didn't think about it again until many years later. But in high school, discovered the TMNT and Other Strangeness game. Played in that. A guy I knew from theater class was running Mutants Down Under. That quickly bridged into playing Rifts. Got into White Wolf. Oddly, got into the World of Darkness games through the GURPS conversions of Vampire the Masquerade and Werewolf the Apocalypse and Mage the Ascension. It wasn't for a couple of years before I actually finally looked at the actual White Wolf versions of those games. Most of my early game mastering experience comes from those, and also in doing LARP. Artel Saurian Games ripped me off in 1995. I was in Boulder, Colorado, while hanging out with the vampire LARPers there. I had put together a CyberGen live-action game at the Boulder Mall. Apparently someone talked about it on some message board, because a month later I'm getting a phone call at a friend's house for me from someone at Artel Saurian Games. Had a big, long, hour-long argument about making a live-action Cyberpunk, and them wanting to get on that CyberGen because they're really trying to push CyberGen at the time. And my perspective being, actually Cyberpunk would be the better one to launch a live-action with, because that's the more recognizable title. And as soon as they found out I was 17, because there was a point at the conversation where well, would you like to fly out to California so we can talk about this? And I was well, I have to get my grandfather's permission. And he's how old are you? I'm 17. Click. But, so I don't know. I ran a live action game that was so good. The company that produced the game book I was using tracked me down to another person's house to talk to me about it. I also won a best karaoke performance at a vampire convention in San Antonio. But it was right around the year 2000. I went to a Magic the Gathering competition. And that ended up being a monumental experience, because it was so heinous. The cases of poor losers and poor winners. It just really turned me off by the time I got done to the entire nerd genre, that I stopped watching Star Trek, I stopped playing role-playing games, I got rid of all my Magic cards. There's maybe another year or so where I would still collect a few White Wolf products here and there just to kind of continue reading about the story and stuff, but eventually that petered out, and I didn't touch role-playing games for most of my 20s after that point. It wasn't until advertising on YouTube for D&D 4th edition that they had these nice little ads where they used a lot of graph paper art, and it was just to hit the right note of nostalgia for old school gaming, where, I decided to pick out the 4th edition books. I talked my sister and some of her high school friends into being guinea pigs to play it. Immediately realized that its rules were shit, and that it was basically just trying to be an analog video game where there's really nothing to do outside of being in the dungeon. So I decided to go see if Rifts was still around. Lo and behold, despite their controversies, Palladium was still standing and still putting out books. So I dived into Rifts. Finding Rifts players is not always easy, though. So aside from a few early days of online role-playing kind of stuff, most of my time, with these hobbies in my 30s was largely just as something to do alone in the middle of the night, just coming up with adventure stories and campaigns and NPCs, then scrapping everything and starting over, in between long bouts of actually being able to get enough people together at the same time to actually feel like I have enough people to run it properly. I like having a 3-person group minimum, between 3 and 5. That's just kind of my sweet spot. And then 5th edition came out. I reluctantly checked it out. To my surprise, putting out a meetup.com ad trying to get people to play it, got a lot of responses. And so since about 2015-ish on, I've largely just been running 5th edition stuff. Reluctantly, I find it cartoonish, overpowered. It's practically Rifts with all the interdimensional travel and superpowered characters. D&D basically has become Rifts, but I guess that's a subject for another day. And just, otherwise just life was normal, have your stupid day job, paying your rent, living hand to mouth, get a book every once in a while, get some coworkers, play some D&D, find some people online, play some D&D. Never expected to be living out here in the countryside near where I grew up, not having to slave away in a kitchen or at a gas station anymore, getting to experiment with rules and do research and just think, or just have days where I do nothing except just sit around and watch YouTube videos. It's weird. In some ways, I feel that some people on a spiritual level, just because of the fact that by some weird happenstance, luck smiled upon me and I'm getting to live this dream that so many people of my, genre don't get to have, that, you should support me just for the sake of the fact that you can live vicariously through me. But anyway, though, like I was saying, meet the wife, the pandemic happens, the world shuts down, my mom died right before that. I very much feel that actually honestly does qualify as an apocalyptic event, and because, the world has changed, and the world that we knew is gone, as much as we still try to cling to its old ghosts. We should just count ourselves super lucky that it was such a mild apocalypse altogether. But yet here we are, living in the rubble and the ashes of what once was. And I'm being allowed to write role-playing games. And, do I push it a bit much? Do I bring up the fact that, you can get yourself a nice copy of Stewards and Obstacles in print or on PDF, depending on whether or not you want to go to Amazon.com or DriveThruRPG, the only adventure module that allows you to play Wizards of the Coast employees battling hateful content within the depths of the VTT so that they can become fully monetized. I could be doing stuff like that, but that's a little exploitative. The thing is part of my problem with what D&D is doing is I don't really want to blame the game itself. It's cheesy. I have my problems with it, but it's also fun. I've had a lot of fun with it. Started running a Spelljammer game, back in September, and everything had been chugging along weirdly but nicely and all that kind of stuff until all this OGL madness erupts. But I believe in death of the author. The product itself should stand on its own because it's how I choose to interpret it and use it is more important than whatever the author intended. And the people that were angry at Wizards of the Coast had nothing to do with the authoring of the game whatsoever. That's part of the problem, is that, putting people in charge of a thing that have nothing to do with the thing and no experience of the thing and aren't involved with the thing, complete outsiders. Being told to run this very esoteric, weird, cliquish kind of product genre that they got going on with role-playing games. That was always going to lead to bad. But anyway, so I talked into quitting my job, write role-playing games. I wasn't sure if I was really had any right, so to say, to be intruding myself onto the scene and trying to sell people products and all that kind of stuff. So I hatched upon a plan after the YouTube algorithm just randomly happened to show me an RPG pundit video where he was talking about how to make money writing role-playing games. And I got in contact with him because he had mentioned that, he does consultant work. I paid him $50, had a Skype call, had him read a thing that I wrote specifically just to test how he would react to it, because I know how to write. I know what role-playing games are supposed to be like. I've been dicking with them for fucking 30 years now. I put in my 10,000 hours of work and practice and study, so to say, if you believe in that whole thing. But I wrote Orc and Bone, which is an OSR setting, but the entire design of it was kind of basically built to be doing all these things that the RPG pundit says he doesn't like in his videos, and just to kind of gauge his reaction to it. And ignoring what he even said to me, just going on vocal tone and stuff like that, I felt like, okay, yeah, I threaded the needle. I have a place to carve out for myself in this industry. And then I pretty much promptly stopped writing OSR stuff. He was an OSR guy, probably must have thought I was going to hop into the OSR train. He kind of tried to encourage me to get to know Venger Satanis a little bit, which in retrospect I find a little insulting and dismissive, but whatever. It's not like I know the guy personally. I paid him $50 and talked to him for an hour on Skype. That's not a relationship. It was, like I said, a test just to see if I had a place. If I can get the RPG pundit to say I did something interesting and cool with something that is entirely flying in the face of his own taste preferences, then I got something to offer. So I started cranking out a bunch of books. Escape from Planet Matriarchy, Expedition to Ancient Egypt, so on and so forth. Yeah, you know all about him. You've heard him. You love him. And as I said, I've still been playing D&D. Just building up the channel. Got lucky that this OGL thing has caused a burst of increase of interest. Lucky that I'd been bored of making D&D videos for a while because, I did my D&D DM advice video. I did my D&D elf video. I've talked about orcs and racism. I've talked about combat wheelchairs. I covered all the basic stuff. And either I could just keep talking about the same shit over and over again, or talk about other games. So I would do some series about like a tour guide of the dinosaur swamps of Rifts and stuff like that. But views crash. People mostly just want to see that sweet D&D content. And Spelljammer gave me an excuse to kind of start doing D&D content again, just months before this shit happened. Obviously, I have opinions on what Wizards of the Coast is up to. As I was trying to say earlier, my beef with them is it's gamers are collectors. There's a degree that it's okay to exploit them when it comes to the kind of products that you're putting out. They want to be exploited a little bit because collectors like collecting things, and so you're just doing them a favor by providing them something that they would like to collect. Up to a certain point. Because of the fact that this could be so easily abused, you have to, be careful that people aren't taking too much advantage of it. And what I consider this whole idea of trying to bottleneck D&D through a virtual tabletop and shit that they have planned for one D&D in 2024 is abusing that relationship. They know they got all these people addicted to crack, and they want to make sure they can only get crack if they come to this one place so that no one else can sell them crack. And they get all the crack money. No, fuck that. The game itself is still fine. I don't blame the game. And the people who still want to play 5th edition, great. Every time D&D has come out with a new edition, everyone who liked the old edition and didn't want to move on to the new edition didn't just up and quit D&D entirely and run off to go play Shadowrun. They still stuck with the edition they liked, and they still continued to run their campaigns. And so all the 5th edition people don't need to be feeling so self-conscious if you're still wanting to play 5th edition. Because of one D&D, 5th edition just got a lot cooler. Now it's something that's an artifact from history, more so than just a product just being sold. Its ownership, ignoring all the OGL shit, all the OSR shit, Creative Commons. As soon as you buy an RPG product, if you're the one running the game, it's entirely in your hands what you want to do with it. You have complete and total ownership of this thing in a way that no other entertainment product, is presented. Because, if you buy a DVD, you don't have to set up and produce and reenact the DVD events of Star Wars with your friends. If you write a novel, you don't have to sit there. If you read a book, you don't have to sit there and write it yourself. Only Dungeons & Dragons is this a form of entertainment that hands you a package of here's some concepts and some basic rules to frame things around. Other than that, it's on you to actually make it come to life. There's a degree of ownership with all role-playing games because of that. That transcends petty little legal matters like the Open Games license. And this effort to try to bottle all that up so they can milk it for every last penny they can flies in the face of what the actual real beating heart of this hobby is. And I didn't like that. And so I made videos talking about that. And the YouTube algorithm, because it was a hot topic, happened to decide to start putting my videos in front of people more so than it has in the past. And so I've gotten channel growth, and now I'm monetized, which I don't really care about making money off YouTube. You have to be so heavy and audience views to actually really make anything significant on YouTube. The thing about becoming monetized for the channel that's important to me is that it's in YouTube's own interest to promote my videos then. Because they want to make money off my videos, so they are themselves encouraged to show my content to more people, which will introduce more people to me, who will then hear about the fact that, hey, you can get Steers and Obstacles on Amazon.com or Drive-Thru RPG. It's really cheap, and it's the only adventure module that allows you to play Wizards of the Coast employees as they fight hateful content deep in the depths of the virtual torture tomb so that they can become fully monetized, and you can have a fully monetized campaign and enjoy all the riches of the platinum tier loot crates and all that kind of stuff. And so that's why we're here. And I guess thanks for sticking through 20 minutes of that rant. But now I guess you know a little bit more what kind of channel this is and what kind of dude I am. Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? Until next time.